Hi, my name is Caspian and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I read a lot of books and this pile here is my February TBR. So I'm gonna lift it up. I keep my TBR in a box. So I'm gonna start from this end. And if I have counted correctly, I have 10 books on my TBR. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No? Eleven, because one is not on my list on my paper. So I'm gonna start with this one. And so this is the first book on my TBR. I've already read it. So I read this, today is the 4th of February, and I read this like the 1st and 2nd of February. So I started the month off with this one and I blew through it, and I think I have talked about it. Yes, I talked about it in my most recent video, so I've already talked about this. But it's called Addicted to You by Kristen Becker Ritchie, and I would call it a romance. I think it constitutes like, I think it counts as a romance. It says 2 best friends, liars, lovers, addicts, one epic love story. And to just briefly mention, it's about 2 addicts that fool everyone around them that they are in a relationship so that they can enable each other's addictions and keep each other's and their own secrets. So it's a friends to lovers kind of story, and it's I was drawn to this because there were several, at least 2 booktubers that had mentioned it and loved it, so I had to put it on my TBR. So this is the first one on my TBR, and I've also already read it, so I won't talk about it more because you can just watch the other video. So that's the first one on my TBRs. And what I do is, when I have read a book, I put it, because from the library especially, I put it with this side facing me, so I turn it around so that I know that it's been read, so I can see on my little box kind of shelf that okay, so many are read from this month's TBR. So I put it at the far end. So I put it back where I took it. So at the other end, I have the books that I'm reading them from left to right, you can say. And then I have an extra one that didn't really fit. So I'm gonna talk about the ones that are in this box first, and then I'm gonna talk about a couple that aren't in the box. So in here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I have 2 others that I'm gonna talk about. So right now I'm reading this one, the second one on my TBR. This is, I think it's called The Secret Bookshop, but I'm reading it in Swedish because that's the edition that, The Lost Bookshop. The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. So I'm reading it in Swedish because that's the edition that the library had, and I prefer to read books from the library. So this is about, it says on the back, Opaline, Martha and Henry has been, what's that in English? Side characters, I think, in their own lives for far too long, but when a secret bookshop becomes a part of their lives, these 3 will discover that their own stories are just as magical as the stories in their favorite books. They discover the secrets of the bookshelves and are transported to an unbelievable world where nothing is what it seems. So I have read a quarter almost of this book so far, and I'm liking it so far. So it actually is you have all the 3 POVs, so Martha, Opaline, and Henry. And Martha and Henry are in this era, like the 2000s, because there are modern references. It doesn't say what year, but there are modern references, like TikTok and other kind of thing. And then Opaline is, her story takes place in 1921. And it takes place both in England, Dublin, and in Paris. Mostly in Dublin, currently where I'm at in the book. So it's an interesting story. I don't know much more about it other than what it says on the back, and I'm starting to get to know the main characters and the storyline a little bit. It's very interesting, it's very gripping. I do want to continue reading, but I haven't really gotten into. It's starting to get interesting now. It's about 400-ish pages, 430 or something, and I'm about 100 pages in, or I think, something like that. So I'm reading this because I saw it on BookTube, but also because an acquaintance of mine that had loved another book, so she posted on her Instagram that she was reading a book that I had just hauled from the library. And then when I was finished with that one, and she also, both of us loved it. And then the next book she puts up is this one, and I have just gotten it from the library as well. So we're reading it at the same time right now, and I'm just hoping that we both love it. So I think this is a mystery. I would call it a mystery, and there might be like a side story with some romance in it, but I don't know for sure yet. And it doesn't say on the back either. So I'm gonna pull this down. So the next one is a non-fiction. It's Always Looking Up: The Adventures of an Incurable Optimist by Michael J. Fox. And I borrowed this one because I found out it existed, and I own his first memoir called Lucky Man, and I loved that one when I read it like 10 years ago. So when I saw this one, I was like, oh, another one by Mike. I need to read it, because he was like one of my main idols almost when I was growing up. I watched Family Ties. My favorite movies of all times are the Back to the Future trilogy. Just ask my partner. I am obsessed. And yeah, I wanted to read it. I have read, because I started this actually late January, and but I'm putting it on my February TBR, and I'm 76 pages in, and it's about 250 or something. I can't believe it still has the old card from the library. That's so funny. So it's about 276 pages. And so far, I'm not liking this as much as the first one. The first one was written in a chronological order, so like from when he started his career, and then up until he got the diagnosis of Parkinson's and stepped down from his acting career. This one is divided into chapters. So it's not chronological. It's part 1 work, part 2 politics, part 3 faith, part 4 family. And I have read the section of work, and I've entered politics, and I was expecting more so far, because so far it's just a bunch of name dropping, and that doesn't impress me. I want to know how he. I don't know, I want deeper. It feels very surface level, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna think about this. I'm gonna save my judgment for later, but I have a feeling that I would like it more if it was chronological and more like woven. Everything was woven into the story more, because this is very compartmentalized, and that's not my cup of tea so far. But I am giving it a shot. I'm not gonna DNF it. I'm just gonna take it slow. Then the next one is Beautiful Creatures, the 4th book, and I know in English, because this one is in Swedish, so it's the Beautiful Creatures. All of the books in this series are called Beautiful Creatures in Swedish. Weird, huh? In English, this one is Beautiful Redemption, and the Swedish title is The Last Trial. So Beautiful Redemption, the 4th book in the Beautiful Creatures series. I hope that's the name of the series in English. I don't know. I enjoyed the first 3 books. I enjoyed the 3rd one a bit less than the first 2, but I do want to know what happens, so I want to finish the story. I'm not sure this book does, though. I think there might be a 5th book. I'm not sure. Or maybe the 5th book is just in the same universe, but I'm gonna have to look that up. But I'm gonna read this one, and I'm so happy I found it in Swedish, because I'm buddy reading this with a friend, and she's listening to the audiobooks, and the audiobook for this one was not available in Swedish, and it was kind of hard to get in English. So far I'm the only one reading this, the 4th one, and I'm gonna try not to spoil it for her. So yeah. So the next one is the 3rd book in the Inheritance Game series. The Final Gambit. Riddles upon riddles, secrets upon secrets, winner takes it all. And I actually read the first 2 books in this series in Swedish, but it hasn't come out. This one hasn't come out in Swedish yet. Even though it's from, like, I don't know, when is it from? Okay, it's just a couple of years old. So I'm gonna read this in English. In this series we follow Avery, that's inherited a fortune from what she thought was a stranger, and I'm not gonna talk too much about it because this series is very interesting. I did enjoy the 1st and 2nd book, the 1st one more than the 2nd. And in this, I'm not that big of a fan of the romance in this, or like the romantic. I'm more a fan of the mystery in this. So it's the mystery that keeps me going with this series. So this is the 3rd one in the Inheritance Games, and I think this is the last one that focuses on this on Avery and her relationship to all of the 4 brothers Hawthorne, but I'm not sure. But I think because the next one is called the Hawthorne Brothers, so I think that one is kind of a, like, it's the same kind of universe. But it's not a fantasy. So I don't know. Maybe it's a spin-off or something. But I'm gonna read this one. So there's a lot of series for me. So this is actually also a series, I found out. It's like 7 or 8 books, or maybe more. Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 9 books total. It's 2 series that kind of intertwine. So I have already put myself on the list for the 2nd one, which is called Ricochet. So yeah, I started. This is the first series I started this year, and the Lost Bookshop is a standalone. The nonfiction is a standalone. Beautiful Creatures, of course, is a series. Inheritance Game, the Final Gambit is a series, and then y'all, I'm gonna read a very thick book. I'm just hoping to get through all of these in February, because Becca and the Books kind of got me into this one when she was talking about it. So there is a book club or something going on here on YouTube with this series. The Faithful and the Fallen, book 1, Malice. So this is actually, I think, the January pick for that book club, so I'm a little bit behind, but I'm gonna watch the live show after I've read this one. But Becca from Becca and the Books, she talked about this and I was like, that sounds like my cup of tea. I have to give it a try. And then when I went to the library, there it was. And I was like, my chance to see if this is something for me. And I can, if I don't finish it in February, I think I might be able to extend my loan. From right now, knock on wood, there is no one in line for it, like on a waiting list. So hopefully, if I don't get to this, or if I prioritize the other ones, I can wait. I can extend the loan for this one. So knock on wood. So that will be the second series I start this year. I have finished a series. No, I haven't. Did I? No, I DNF'd the series this year. But I'm gonna talk about that in my... I did actually talk about it in my last video. So, this is the next one. So with this, I will finish this series. So this is the Belladonna series by Adeline Grace, the third book, Wisteria. I did talk about Foxglove, the second book, in my last video. It was my least favorite of the first two so far. So what actually kept me going with Foxglove was the fact that I had heard so many great things about Wisteria. So I'm really looking forward to this book. In this series we follow Signa and Death and their kind of romance. And we also follow Fate and Blythe. So Blythe is supposed to be the main character for this book. So I'm looking forward to getting to know her even more than we did in the second book. Because with the second book, I was more fond of her as a character than Signa. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. Hopefully soon, but I have a lot of books, so who knows. I have a lot of books to read. So I will finish the series with that one, so that's nice. And then I have this one. This is it's the Themis Files. I think that's the name in English as well. It's the second series in the Themis Files. And this is, in English, it is called... What's it called? Waking Gods. Waking Gods is called in English. So this is the second book, and I remember, what do I remember from the first book? The first book was Sleeping Giants, and there was some kind of, people found parts of, like a giant, like robot kind of thing. Parts scattered all over the world, and there was like this science team putting them together. I don't remember that much of it, but I remember loving it. And this is a mixed media kind of book, and I have heard that the audiobook is really nice in English, but I'm reading this in Swedish. I try to mix it up a bit so that I have like maybe at least every third book in Swedish, or like always a book in Swedish that I can read if I am tired of reading in English. It depends on the book. Sometimes English can be a bit... I'm good at English, right? Especially reading English, but to go from like one book to another with different writing styles in English and different vocabularies and different just... everything different and a lot of different words in English, and it can be a bit much if I have several books in English at once or right after each other. So I try to break it up a bit with books in Swedish, and if I start a series in one language, I would prefer to keep reading it in that language. So far, the only exception to the rule of sticking to the language is The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So with this one, I'm sticking with Swedish. So this is a sci-fi. I'm really looking forward to the sci-fi because I've read a lot of romance and I read a lot of fantasy in the last month or so, and it's been a couple of months since I read a sci-fi, so I'm really looking forward to it. So the last book I have here, of the 9 I have here, is this one. This is actually, it's the first book in a series in Swedish, but it's the second book I will read because I read the first one for my my Sunweight calendar. So in my Sunweight calendar I had bought a book with like a Christmas kind of theme, and I didn't know until I opened it that it was a part of a series, but they are kind of standalone, I think. So in the book that I read, the second book in this series, so this series is Ultuna-sviten. Ultuna-sviten in Swedish. And this book is Christmas in Crinoline, or I don't know how you pronounce it in English. Jul i Krinolin. And so I read the second book in this series for my Swedish, for my Sunweight calendar. And I read it in Swedish, and I loved it. In that book we followed what I think is the daughter of the person we follow in this book. So in the second book we followed a woman that had married a guy that was actually, he had a deep dark secret, and they didn't really have a good marriage. They had a son, and there was a romance between the female main character and the son's teacher. And it was set in like the early 1900s or late 1800s. And in that book, the mother of the bride was still in Italy. So the woman in the book was half Swedish, half Italian. And the mother was still in Italy, and you got like hints of the mother's youth and how she had met the father of the bride. Let's just call him that. So I think we're following the mother in this one, the Italian mother. I have come to learn that this is like stock photo pictures. they have nothing to do with the story, except maybe like the color of the dress is the same as in the book or something for a party. So this one says December 1870, so it's definitely set before the second one, because I think the second one was like 1884 or 1890 or something. The young Lovisa Lind is all alone in the world. After a hard time, she's gotten a good job, but she plans to emigrate to America to start over. I don't know who she is. That's not the mother of the bride. At first, she's just gonna help with the candy, I think, on Baron von Drever's spectacular winter ball. Appalled, Lovisa notices that the cranky widower has her heart thawing up, and the attraction seems go both ways, even though she's just a poor... Oh, she cooks candy for a living, so she makes caramel for a living. There is something romantic lurking over all of this, something sad and also something creepy. While the snow outside is tumbling, maybe, and the cold has a hard grip on the village, Lovisa is being drawn into a carousel of, or like a roller coaster, maybe I would translate it more as, of mysterious secrets and an impossible love story. So this is not about the mother of the bride. I wonder how they are related, or if they are at all. I was hoping to read about the mother. Maybe that's in book 3, because there's 3 books in this series. So I'm looking forward to this anyway. So this is also a Swedish one I have to break up the English ones with. So I'm gonna put it up here. And then I have 2 books that are not on this in this shelf. One is in another place in my home, and it's The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien? I think that's the way you say it in English, right? Tolkien. Because in Swedish we say Tolkien. Tolkien. So I am following the Middle Earth Along here on YouTube and on Fable. So I did attempt to read The Hobbit in January. And now I'm gonna give it a shot to read the Fellowship of the Ring. It's the first time I'm reading these books. I have found the Fellowship of the Ring on the audiobook of the Fellowship of the Ring on an app that is available in Sweden, and it's available on their you get your first month for free, and so I'm hoping to subscribe to that one just so I can listen to that one. Fingers crossed, or hold the thumb as we do in Sweden. So I'm gonna try and attempt that, because I wasn't fond of his writing style. So I'm hoping that maybe the audiobook would be better. I'm not an audiobook kind of guy, but I'm gonna try it, and I have a plan to listen to it when I have like daily walks. So it will probably take some time for me to get through it, but I have until the 22nd of February, so I have about 2.5 weeks. Is that so? I think so. So I'm gonna try and subscribe to that from like tomorrow, and then go for a walk and start listening to it. And the last book that I have not here yet, I've just today gotten a text message from the library that I can pick it up, and that is The Naturals, also by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, I think. So since I am enjoying the Inheritance games, I hope that the writing style continues, because I love the writing style in Swedish, the translation. So I'm hoping I like it in English when I read the Final Gambit, and that it is consistent with The Naturals. That is also her series. I don't know the name of the full series, but the first book in that series is The Naturals, and I'm gonna borrow that, and I'm gonna read it after I have read the Final Gambit. So I'm hoping to be able to read all of these 11 books in February. I will have the Naturals a bit into March, but in March, I won't have time. I won't be able to go to the library, so I don't want to. I might not be able to go to the library as much, so I don't want to have books at home that I need to go there to return. Because I have a surgery on the 6th of March, and before that, I want to return all of these books, including The Naturals, to the libraries, and then during my recovery I want to read only books from my own TBR. That's kind of my plan. So I'm hoping to read all of these 11 books before the 6th of March, return them hopefully like the weekend before, so like I think that will be the 1st or 2nd of March or something like that at the latest. So that's kind of my plan, to return the last of these books by then. But as per usual, I will update you when I have read, I will update you like once a week, and I do read about 2 to 3 books a week, depending on the speed and depending on the book. I have my suspicions that maybe I will have to extend my loan of Malice all through March as well. Maybe I won't be returning that one. So so that's kind of my plan for this, and I will update you along the way, and in my next video I will give you a wrap up for January. I am collecting the stats that I want to collect right now. I'm in the middle of finishing that chapter of my reading journal, and I get like an overview of it so that I can talk about it with you, because I don't have the books with me. So from January they are back at the library, except for the few that I own. So I'm gonna have my plan is to maybe show you my reading journal and talk from that a little bit, and talk about the few stats that I keep. I don't keep a lot of stats, but yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So let's see, this is mystery, one non-fiction. Let's see, mystery, non-fiction, fantasy, mystery, fantasy, fantasy, sci-fi, romance, and then fantasy. I don't know the naturals. I don't know if that's fantasy or not. So there's a good mix of different genres, my kind of genres. I love mysteries. There's no thriller, right? No like great good thriller. Hopefully I will read a thriller in March. So there's a good mix of genres here. And yeah, see you in my next video, and happy reading. Chilling.